Hi, uh, we are here to talk a bit controversial topic. Uh, Desktops. Well, this is the desktop if you use BeagleBoard, or this is the basic desktop that you would have seen before. Is what we call as XFCE, and that's like X Windows based system, which is like literally rock solid, and has been so for so many different years now. When we were doing BeagleY, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to modernize it. But at the same time, we also wanted to maintain something that is true to the upstream root and community roots. So we did not want to modify the desktop uh, in any, changing the source as such, where the desktop looks very different compared to what the out of box, what the community is developing on. So we wanted to use the straight community developed desktop as is, which is probably why we didn't pick up LXQT as an option and modify it. But that's a choice that we made in terms of allowing our community members to go and modify things or develop new desktops if they wanted to do. Anyway, but at the same time, we wanted to modernize our desktop environment um, and get something newer than XFCE, because XFCE has been on BeagleBoard for almost 5-10 years now, if I recollect. So we looked at various options and we found Genome to be very heavy. But on the other hand, when we started looking at Cinnamon, the Mint Cinnamon desktop, we found that it probably might be the right fit. It wasn't perfect. The amount of RAM that it required and CPU that it needed was substantially high compared to what we are kind of used to on XFCE. On XFCE, you would hardly see like 1 or 2% CPU utilization by the desktop environment, and RAM is around maybe 500, 600 megabyte usage. So the comparison does both of this. Eventually, we decided to go with XFCE as the standard. Now, we are still talking initial engineering development that we have been doing in-house here. But it is unfortunate we finally had to go back into XFCE, but we would rather give that option to people where they have a rock solid initial experience, with the option of switching to Cinnamon if they choose to do so. There are two disk images that are being provided. One is the Cinnamon disk image, other is the XFCE disk image. Pick the Cinnamon disk image if you want something really neat and cool. But do expect there is a little bit of instability in some platforms, in some applications that you might try. So first, Cinnamon. Sorry.
And Cinnamon is up. So Cinnamon is the new Wayland-based desktop environment that Mint folks have been working on. The way that we have done this is Cinnamon uses Wayland, which is GPU accelerated. XFCE is pure X Windows based, which is not GPU accelerated, as of 2024 May. So just to show you what you can probably do with it, how do you know that this is really GPU accelerated? So application, Chrome web browser. I'll just show you a terminal as well while it is running. Right. Yeah, Chrome running with very minimal load on the overall CPU. So best way to check GPU usage in Chrome. And if you go to about GPU, you can see that the Canvas version hardware accelerated. You can do the same thing on Firefox as well, but I kind of like Chrome. You can go to Google, and I need to connect my network, which I did. And if you were to look for, yes, thank you, WebGL Quick, you can actually see stuff. It's kind of pretty neat. So there's a WebGL demo which uses the OpenGL ES in the backend. As you can see, the CPU utilization is not that high. When we do something similar to this in the XFCE file system, you'll notice that this is pretty heavy. Okay, now the CPU load initially pumps up because many of the physics engine is still done with the A53s. So let me go full screen. So up, front, left, I think. W, okay. Respawn, respawn, respawn. It's just a demo, but it's kind of useful to see how. If you have GPU acceleration, this is pretty good. Which is why we were trying to enable Cinnamon. But we haven't managed to get it to that extent. Now the recording might show a little bit of a jitter, which I don't see on the actual display here. I believe that might be an artifact of my recording. Let me just try to make sure. And I think the recording has a little bit of jitter, but not on my screen here. It's pretty smooth. That was the GPU version of Cinnamon. So if you're still curious about this GPU, whether GPU is being used or not, so you can do cat proc interrupts and clip PVR, and you can see the number of interrupts PVR is actually having. So this is one quick way to verify that the GPU is actually in function. So we do have quite a bunch of challenges with the GPU acceleration. So there are a lot of applications that are starting that are not yet ready to run, especially the ones that are standard, screenshot applications, and using many of the standard Linux applications that seem to be tied down with X Windows, that we have had challenges with. So as you can see, the icons are all messed up here. So this is why we switched to XFCE as our primary delivery, and I'll show you how the XFCE boot works as well. But you should try out the Cinnamon image, especially with this GPU getting used. Many of the standard desktop stuff is a little cooler in activity, but again, you should probably try both of it and pick the one that works for you. XFCE is the most stable version, and Cinnamon is the more bleeding edge, if you were to say that. So you expect a lot of bugs that come along with it. To shut down, as you saw, you just select power, quit. You can also do log out, but you just will have to log back in. Click shut down, and just wait for the LED to go off, and you're good to remove power. And we are now getting XFCE up and running. Keep in mind, XFCE is much lightweight, but unfortunately it is X Windows based, and the graphics acceleration of X Windows, at least on Imagination GPU, is a little lagging at the moment. But once Imagination has gotten their basic stuff up and running in upstream, we should probably see a much better story in 2025. At least that's the anticipation. This is your standard XFCE desktop environment that folks who have been using Beagle are already very familiar with. So if you just to repeat what we did with Cinnamon, right? If you were to start up Chromium, and let me start a terminal on the side to just show you. Run my stop over here. So the footprint of XFCE is very lightweight. It's almost, you won't even see what's going on there. But when you start using GPU, doing graphic stuff like how we were doing, it takes a significant number of CPU cycles. So right now you'll see that it's a software only rendering rather than hardware acceleration. So very basic minimum stuff. This is what Firefox will also be running with, and the same thing that Chrome also runs with. It's not that bad a load on the CPU until you do what we did before. WebGL, let's use Quake. Then you'll see the CPU load hitting max out. At this point, almost everything is going to be software and rastering. So see, this is going to be a challenge. So you can't essentially run any WebGL applications in the 2D mode. Now you can also see if your GPU is active by doing what we did before and grab PVR. Hardly have like 1 or 2 interrupts. So CL info, if you were to run, it's OpenCL stuff, but if you look at it, it actually uses the GPU extensions with imagination. Anyway, so yeah, RGX compute test, and this is just to show that the OpenCL interfaces work in this configuration here. If you look at cat proc interrupts and grep for it, we'll see the basic interrupts that the compute test actually did. So even though you're not using GPU for your graphics acceleration in XFCE, some Qt applications can actually use it. You can also use it for OpenCL, which is kind of pretty cool. But as such, XFCE is very lightweight. It doesn't have any fancy features and shadows and stuff like that, which I wouldn't know why we haven't enabled that on Cinnamon, but it's there. Your memory footprint is also much tiny. Your CPU load is also very lightweight. So at this point, XFCE is your more performing desktop environment. Cancel, quit, Control D, and powering off everything is very similar. Click on the logout and you select shutdown, and boom, the system will power off in a few seconds. Just watch for the red LED. Once the red LED is done, you're done. So there you go.